I was born in a Christian home, so I went to church in my mother's womb all the time. Then she got baptized while I was in her womb, so I'm baptized 2 times. And even as a child, she always took us to church and to Sunday school. When I was 5, I started to sing in the choir as soon as I read, because I had a soprano voice as I was a child, so I sang in the choir of the church, the seniors choir. Then, from my 5 to 10 years old, we went to church 4 times a week. Later it was more, but this was 4 times a week. And I was very faithful and loyal in Sunday school, and I had many friends in the church. We never missed one day of a service. Even sick, I was taken with fever to church, because we believed that going to church was life. And so as a teenager, I was looking forward to go to the pizzeria after the service and to pass little papers one to each other, to laugh, and if the preacher would commit some mistakes, we would laugh there. You know, it was like every other teenager. But when I was 13 years old, I had an encounter with the Lord, and I gave my life to Jesus seriously, and I started to think about serving God. So I took a Sunday school class, and when I was 15, I became a youth leader. So I had to speak to the youth, and I ended my teenage years being a youth leader. When I was 17 years old, I decided to go to seminary. But before that, I was so in love to bring people to the Lord that I went to witness. I knocked doors and I prayed with them at the door. And I don't think I was right, but I did it. I prayed with them whether they like it or not. And I make them pray the sinner's prayer and to accept Christ. And such was my fire that when I went to Bible school, I didn't have money, I had only one suit. So when I took the suit to the cleaners, I had to be in a very, like a jean pants. So I took my motorcycle that I have, a small motorcycle, and I went to the highway, and I took people that were waiting for the bus. I said, "Where do you go?" I said, "Go." "Well, I'll take you." So in the way there, I witnessed to them in the motorcycle. When we arrived there, we made the sinner's prayer, and then I took another person going back home, and so I was in my motorcycle leading people to Christ, because I had a fire inside. I couldn't pass beside a person, being in the train or in the bus, and the person beside me, without talking to them about Jesus Christ. At 20, I was invited to become the secretary of a great evangelist in Argentina that had a large crusade with 400,000 people in his services. So when he left, his mantle fell upon me, so I started to be invited from all my country, from north to south, and then the countries beside us, like Uruguay, like Paraguay, Chile. It was quite a mantle that fell upon me, so I became very famous, though I was only 20 years old. And at that age, when I was 21, I had crusades, large crusades, healing meetings, thousands coming to the Lord in big crusades. And I was invited to come to the United States. I came when I was 21, in my late 21s, to study in the United States. I saw the college I was coming to study was just the same thing that I already studied in Argentina. So I said, why to repeat all that in English? So I decided to go back to my country. I had a fire for evangelism, not to be studying. So I went back to Argentina and from New York. And while in Argentina, the first 2 or 3 weeks, the Spirit led me to go to the Indians of my country, north. And I arrived there and started to preach in many places. But in one place, in the city of Formosa, the Holy Spirit guided me to make a large crusade in the city, in the central park of the city. Thousands came to the Lord. Thousands were baptized in the river. in the Rio Paraguay there, and a large church was organized in that city. That later we went there to the inauguration of the temple. I started church to go into a corner with a guitar. I also played the accordion. I had no money, no nothing. Someplace I went, I didn't have even where to go to sleep. And people came to hear me, to the guitar and singing. I sang in Portuguese, I sang in English, I sang in Italian. So people came to see what was it. And I said, well, what I have is a message for you. And I talk about Christ. The next day we have more people. Then he asked for, if you have a little box where I can stand on, and then if you have a loudspeaker, a PA system, bring it. So we started the church in the corner, and people started to invite me to have dinner, to have lunch. I ate, and sometimes they invited me to sleep. Otherwise, I would sleep under a bridge, or I would sleep in the police station, because I didn't have money for hotels. I was doing this in the corners of parks, when one day I saw a nice-looking, very nice-looking girl that came to listen to me, and I looked at her.
One day, they showed up with a newspaper, and the newspaper read, "Fire in the Mountains, a young evangelist singing with his guitar, preaching about the power of Jesus." So they read that to us, and I thought, wow, I'm not going there, because I knew that it was a Pentecostal minister, and I belonged to the Plymouth Brethren, which is a very narrow-minded church, and they didn't allow me to attend Pentecostal services. So one day I decided I wanted to go and see what was happening. And so I went, and I enjoyed very much the service. The singing was very lively, and I enjoyed it, and then the preaching was lovely. I really enjoyed the message, and I decided I would start to attend the meetings, and I did. One day Juan Carlos invited me. He wanted to have a private talk, and so we went to a private place, and he talked to me about love. I was not really expecting that, so I was a little shocked at the beginning, and he kept on saying that he loved me very much, and he only could offer 2 suitcases, one for him and one for me, and I told him I would pray about it and answer, and so I did. And so after I decided to marry him, I left the school and I went to Bible school to get ready to be a pastor's wife.
And of course, as the honeymoon was going out to start church to preach, we didn't have money for hotels, for honeymoon, nothing. So I went to preach as always. It's interesting that Martha, I don't know how she adapted to that, but we went to the Indians. Our honeymoon was among the Indians. And when David was about to come, she said, I don't want David to be born in this situation. I believe that it was right. So we went to Buenos Aires, and we went there to start a church that now is a very large church in Mar del Plata. And David was born there in that city, beautiful city of Mar del Plata. This was very interesting. We decided that we wanted to teach to the pastors of those churches we started in the north, and also to others that never went to seminary, and they were not able to go to seminary because they didn't have even primary school, they didn't have money. So we decided to make a school for them. So in those days, we were friends of Pablo Poleszczuk and friends of Miguel Ángel Pujol and friends of Jose González. So we decided that we were going to start to eat just spaghettis for maybe 2 or 3 months, spaghettis, nothing else, and save all the money to start those schools. That was the Pujols and Martha and me and the others. So we saved money, and we went to Corrientes, the north of my country, and we made a whole month. We brought pastors from the interior. We brought, I think, around 30 pastors. We paid their ticket to come, we paid their food, and they slept in the church building on the benches. We put a little mattress there, and we were 1 month together doing a Bible school. It was a kind of math program, no, for those people. It was morning, noon, and night, the whole day, studying and teaching. We kept on doing some of these schools in the interior, that when the Lord visited Argentina with a tremendous charismatic revival, and we became the center of all that in our church building because of our position in that place, because the Lord opened my heart to this movement. And that is when we started to have fellowship with Catholics and Methodists and Baptists, and a big, great renewal started in our midst. And from what happened in that church, the book Disciple came about. And what happened in that church brought people from around the world to see us. Billy Graham invited us to speak in the Lausanne Congress on Evangelism in Switzerland. And it was to, I don't know, I think almost 10,000 leaders from around the world. So when that finished, I was invited to go and speak around the world, in Australia, in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, from all those, and my book was translated into all those languages. So I started to travel around the world. And it was hard for the family because Martha was with 4 children in Buenos Aires, and the church also suffered because I was traveling so much. So when I came back from my trips, I had to put up with the church. There were so many things to do, and the family was being neglected. So I was counseled by those who love us very much that if I would travel, I would travel, not being a pastor and travel, because it was not good for my family, too much work. So we decided to move to the United States to be closer to the world, to travel. So that's when we moved and we came to California. We center ourselves in Cupertino, California, the northern part of California, and from there I traveled for 10 years around the world, not stopping. I went to one of my trips to northwest United States in the state of Washington. And while I was flying to that place, Dr. Schuller calls my wife home and tells, I need Juan Carlos to preach in my church tomorrow morning. And this was Saturday morning. She said, impossible, Dr. Schuller, because he is engaged. Actually, he's flying to Spokane in Washington State. Schuller said, I'm sorry, Sister Martha. I do not believe in impossibilities. I don't believe that for a Christian there is anything impossible, because the Lord said that nothing will be impossible for you if you believe, and I believe. So please call the pastors where Juan Carlos is going to be preaching and tell them that Dr. Schuller needs him for, I don't give my pulpit to anybody, but I was recommended Juan Carlos so much that I will run the risk to invite. And I remember because I was in Lausanne, Switzerland when he preached in the Billy Graham conference. Schuller invited me because he was supposed to be someplace else. The president had called him for a meeting, but that meeting was postponed. So he decided to let me preach, and he came and listened to me from the car and the big screen there outside. So he heard me, and after he heard me, he called me in the telephone and said, Juan Carlos, I want to talk to you seriously. So after 1 month, I got an invitation from him, and he said to me, Juan Carlos, something within my heart tells me to give you everything I have. I said, what do you mean by that? To give you the cathedral, to give you this campus, everything I have, and the cameras, everything. This is my tuxedo for my spiritual party, and I want to lend you my tuxedo for your spiritual party with the Hispanics. The first day came Suki and Julio Soria, the Galindons, and Edenia, and those 3 couples, and Martha and I, with Carmen, that was given to me as a secretary, we started this church in the chapel in the sky. Very soon, less than a year, the chapel was filled with 70 people. Then we started television. few months later, we started television, and television started to bring people to the church. So we moved to the Arboretum downstairs. And then we filled the Arboretum, and many of you came to the Lord in that Arboretum. The church grew fast. When we moved to the Crystal Cathedral,
I remember he used to always bring us presents, and every time he arrived, we would all crowd around him. What did you bring me? What did you bring me? And one day he got kind of upset because we were expecting so many presents all the time. So he said he wasn't going to bring any at all. And my mom sat us down to write little notes to him because he was very hurt. And we sat around the table and wrote notes, and I remember, I was very sad because I saw him hurting so much, that I wrote, "Daddy, don't bring me any presents. The biggest present is you." And guess who got the biggest present? Yeah, it was me. And he was very happy, and I know that you probably heard this in many sermons because he uses that. But I was a daddy's girl. I used to always cry when he was gone. And my mom always had to console me. I had to climb into her bed. I got to sleep in her bed a lot because of that. So that was great.
If there's a story that I would like to share with you regarding my family history, it would be when my parents went to buy their first house. It was just an amazing testament of faith to all of us, I think, and it will never leave my memory. My dad and mom had just moved here from Argentina, and they went to the loan agent, who was Jewish, and of course had to fill out an application. Well, your job history, sir? Well, I'm a preacher. Well, how do you know you're going to get paychecks? What's your salary? Well, no, I live by faith. I don't know exactly what my salary is going to be. I don't know when. So, of course, the guy was looking at Dad like, "Sir, you're crazy." And Dad was very firm. He says, "Sir, I just live by faith, but God always provides." So the guy was really making fun of Dad at that point and treating him like a fool. But he asked him, "Well, what proof are you going to show me that you could make your housely payment every month?" And Dad said, "Well, all I have to prove is my invitations. I'm booked 3 years in advance all the time, and I have them here in my briefcase. Let me show them to you." He gets out today's mail he had picked up from the post office box. There's an invitation from the White House for the National Prayer Breakfast. There's an invitation from the Archbishop of Canterbury. There's these huge invitations, needless to say, and it was just a miracle. And the guy was so impressed, but didn't know what he was going to do. He had no paycheck stubs like we need nowadays. So he went to his bosses, and he was gone for half an hour. My dad was left there in the room and comes back and says, "Sir, your collateral for your loan for your 6-bedroom house is going to be your copies of these invitations. And I don't know how it's working, but it is, and congratulations." And I think that's a true testament to what God can do, and that's how we were raised. And I just thank you, Mom and Dad, and it's not easy, but we did it, and God always provides.
When we were growing up in Argentina, it was a time of turmoil. The military government was fighting against the communist guerrillas, and there were a lot of killings and kidnappings. And at this time, a lot of people were seeking for God, so my dad's church was growing, and he became an influential person in the community. One night, late at night, we got a phone call from a communist group, and they wanted to ask something of my dad. They wanted him to denounce the government for some killings that had taken place from the pulpit. And they threatened him that if he would not do what they asked, they would kill him or they would harm our family. So my father got us together at home, and he explained us the situation, and he told us that he could not do what they asked because of his principles. He felt that the church was a place to preach the gospel and not to be a mouthpiece of any group. So we agreed to support him, and we decided to stay home and hide, and he did not do what they asked. So this went on for 2 or 3 weeks, and the threats got worse, they got uglier, until finally he persuaded them to meet with him so he could explain to them why he would not do what they asked. And they agreed, and they met with him. At the time they told him, "Pastor Ortiz, we can kill you. We can kill your family. We're not afraid to kill for our cause. Why don't you do what we asked?" And he told them, "If you're going to kill me now for my principles, because I don't believe I should do that." And they told him, "Pastor Ortiz, we're not going to kill you, and we'll tell you why. Because we are the champions of the poor, and you're a man who has compassion for the poor. One of our leaders has a brother who went to your church, and he was very poorly dressed, and he had no shoes. And he told us that you walked up to him and gave him the shoes of your feet, you gave him all the money you had, and you invited him to dinner. And we cannot kill a man who has a heart like yours." And that's my dad, a man of principle and compassionate for the poor.
I have to make a confession. Neither Martha nor I are willing to live. It is sad. The decision was made only for health reasons. We believe that if we continue to work like this, we are not going to live for too long. And I have many things that I have in my heart and mind that I want to write. I have already themes for 15 books. So I made a little outlines of my books, and I believe that those books will bless many, many people. I will not say goodbye because I will still live around here and we will see each other continually. But I will say you thank you very much for being my friends. Thank you for accepting me as I was, and thank you for doing the effort for this church to continue and to succeed, to strive, and to further more the kingdom of God. I love you with all of my heart, and we will be together forever. Amen.
Vamos cantando.